The sky was black, full of fire and smoke. Lena Carter opened her eyes slowly. Pain shot through her side. She was inside a small crash pod, lights flashing red, alarm beeping soft. Her head was bleeding, and her lips were dry. She looked around. Everything was broken. The ship was gone, and she was alone. Outside, the ground was orange-brown, cracked and dry, like a desert with no life. The wind blew dust into the sky, making the air thick and hot. She tried to stand. Her leg hurt, but was not broken. "Hello," she shouted, but there was no answer. Only silence. Her crew was gone. Maybe dead, maybe lost. She didn't know. The last thing she remembered was a system error and a bright explosion before everything went black. Now she was here, on a strange planet with no name and no help. Lena checked the pod's control screen. It showed no signal, no power, and only 2 days of food. She took a deep breath, trying not to panic. "I have to survive," she whispered. "At least long enough to get a signal out." She grabbed a water pouch, a small laser knife, and a flare gun from the pod. Then she stepped out into the unknown. The ground crunched under her boots. The sun above was red and hot. She walked toward the wreckage of the larger ship. In the distance, maybe some parts still worked. Hours passed. Sweat covered her face. The heat made her dizzy, but then she saw something move. A shape, tall, thin, and fast. Moving between the rocks, Lena stopped, heart pounding. "Is someone there?" she asked, her voice shaky. Nothing, just the wind. She kept walking. But now she felt like she was being watched at the crash site. Most things were destroyed. Metal burned and black, but she found one power cell still blinking weak. She placed it in her pack. Maybe it could help her later. Suddenly, the shape appeared again, not close, but not far either. It stood on a rock, watching her. It had 2 arms, 2 legs, and glowing yellow eyes. Not human, but not wild either. Lena froze, afraid to move. Then, slowly, the figure turned and walked away into the dust. Lena's heart beat fast, her mouth dry again. "What was that?" she whispered. "An alien." She returned to the small pod by nightfall. The red sun was gone, and the stars came out. But they were not the stars she knew. Everything in the sky felt strange. Like she was far from Earth, far from help. The temperature dropped fast. The wind turned cold. She wrapped herself in a blanket and sat by the pod's weak heater. She could hear strange animal sounds outside, distant growls and high screeches. She held the laser knife tight in her hand. Sleep did not come easily, just as her eyes began to close. She heard footsteps. She looked up there. Outside the pod stood the same tall alien figure. It didn't come in, just stared at her with glowing eyes. Her hands shook, but she didn't scream. The alien took one slow step closer, then dropped something near the door. It was a small fruit, red and round. Then it turned and vanished into the night. Lena stared at the fruit, unsure. She didn't eat it, but she didn't throw it away either. Something about the alien didn't feel dangerous. She didn't know why, but deep inside, a voice told her this creature might not be her enemy. Lena lay back, her mind full of questions. Where was she? Who was this alien, and why did it help her? One thing was clear: she was not alone on this planet, and tomorrow she would find out more. But tonight, she would survive. She held the fruit in one hand and the knife in the other, and waited for the morning to come. The red sun rose slowly, casting golden light over the cracked land. Lena Carter opened her eyes, cold and tired. The small fruit still lay beside her, untouched. She sat up and looked around. No sign of the strange alien, but the memory of those glowing yellow eyes stayed in her mind. She picked up the fruit and turned it in her hand. It looked fresh, juicy. Nothing like the dried food she had in her survival pack. Still, she didn't eat it. Not yet. Outside the pod, The morning air was dry but less hot. She stepped out, scanning the land. No footsteps, no sound, just wind and dust. Her stomach growled, reminding her that her food was running low. She opened a ration pack, chewed slowly, and stared into the distance. "What do you want from me?" she whispered to the empty desert. She didn't expect an answer, but she got one. From behind a tall rock, the alien stepped out again. Same height, same glowing eyes, but this time it carried a flat, smooth stone in its hands. On the stone, there were small symbols carved with care. It walked slowly toward her and stopped a few feet away. Then it placed the stone gently on the ground and backed away. Lena crouched and looked at the symbols. She didn't understand them, but they looked like drawing stars fire. Two figures side by side. Was it trying to talk to her? She raised her hands slowly, pointing to herself. "Lena," she said softly. The alien tilted its head, then touched its chest and made a sound. "Raku?" Lena blinked, surprised. "Raku?" she repeated. The alien nodded once. For the first time, Lena didn't feel scared. Still nervous, yes, but not afraid. Raku pointed to the fruit she had left by the pod, then to his mouth. He was telling her it was safe to eat. Lena hesitated, then took a small bite. It was sweet and cool. Like water and berries mixed together, she chewed, swallowed, and felt strength. Returning to her body, "Thank you," she said, though she knew he didn't understand the words, but maybe he understood the feeling. For the next few days, Raku returned again and again. He brought food, small water pods, and sometimes flat stones with more symbols. He never entered the pod, never made sudden moves. They sat together by a small fire Lena made, not speaking, just sharing quiet moments. One night, a sandstorm came wild and fast. Lena's pod shook from the wind, and dust filled the air. She heard a sharp knocking sound. When she opened the door, Raku was there. He motioned for her to follow, waving his hand toward the rocks. Lena hesitated, but the wind screamed louder. She grabbed her pack and ran with him, covering her face from the sand. They reached a small cave, hidden behind sharp rocks. Inside, it was calm. Safe from the storm, they waited there, silent. The firelight dancing on the cave walls. Lena looked at Raku in the dim light. He was strange. Alien, but his eyes were kind. She noticed his arms had scars, old wounds, signs of battle or pain. She wondered what he had lost and why he was alone on this planet. As the storm raged outside, Lena closed her eyes. She whispered softly, "Thank you for saving me." Raku didn't answer, but he sat beside her until sleep took them both. The next morning, they climbed out of the cave together. The sky was clear again, but the pod was buried in dust. Lena knew she couldn't stay in it much longer. She had to move, explore. Maybe find a better place to live or something to fix the signal. Raku pointed to the hills far away, then to the sky. He wanted her to follow him. Lena nodded, packed her bag, and started walking. Each step forward meant leaving safety behind, but also meant moving toward hope. Raku walked beside her, his footsteps silent. His presence strong. He was not just a creature now. He was a companion, a protector, maybe even a friend. And though they were from different worlds, they now shared one mission: survive. Together, they moved toward the unknown. But in Lena's heart, something was changing. A quiet feeling growing. Deep inside, she didn't know what it was yet. But the desert planet, once full of fear, now felt like a place where something new might begin. Not just survival, but something more. Something human, something alien, and something in between. The ground felt strange under Lena's boots. It was soft and warm, almost like something was breathing just below the surface. For 2 days now, she and Raku had been walking across the endless hills of red sand and black stone. The sun was strong. But the wind had started to feel colder, like the planet itself was changing. They didn't speak, but Lena had grown used to the silence between them. Sometimes silence said more than words. Raku led the way with careful steps. He kept looking at the sky, the ground, and the shadows of the rocks. It was like he knew where they were going. Lena followed, trusting him more each day. Suddenly, Raku stopped. He knelt down and brushed away sand with his long fingers. Something shiny appeared, a piece of metal buried deep. Lena dropped her bag and helped clear it. Together, they uncovered a round metal hatch, old and rusted, with alien symbols carved around the edges. Raku looked at her, eyes serious, then pressed a hidden panel on the side. With a deep, heavy sound, the hatch slid open. A narrow tunnel led downward into darkness. Lena took a breath, grabbed a light stick from her pack, and nodded. They stepped into the tunnel together. Inside, the air was thick and cold. The walls were made of black stone, but smooth and naturally smooth. This place was not made by nature. It was made by someone or something. Lena's light flickered over walls covered in glowing symbols. Not just writing, but pictures. She saw stars, ships, and creatures, some like Raku. Some very different. Some even looked human. Raku stopped in front of a large panel that lit up when he touched it. A deep hum echoed through the tunnel. The air felt alive, like it remembered the people who once walked here. Lena stared at the screen, as strange lights danced across it. Then an image appeared, an old star map. She recognized Earth's sun at the edge, and many other stars in the center of the map. A large red dot blinked. It looked like a signal. Hope rose in her chest. Is this a beacon? She asked softly. Raku didn't answer, but his body tensed. He pointed at the red dot and shook his head. Then he pointed at the walls, showing a drawing of a tall tower sending light into the sky. Below it, dark shapes were rising from the ground. Monsters, or machines, or both. Lena looked closer. People were running, falling, being crushed. The message was clear. This place had once tried to send a signal, and it brought destruction. Still, she thought, what choice did she have? She needed to send a message. Her food wouldn't last forever, and her oxygen packs were running low. She touched the panel herself, and a soft female voice echoed in the tunnel. It spoke in an alien language, calm but urgent. Then the star map changed. The red dot flashed faster. Somewhere far away, the signal had been sent. Raku growled low and shook his head again, but it was too late. Lena stepped back, afraid of what she'd done. Raku turned and motioned for her to follow. They rushed out of the tunnel, climbing back, up into the sunlight. But the sky was no longer clear. Dark clouds rolled in fast. Spinning above the hills, the wind screamed like a living thing. And then, the ground shook. Lena fell to her knees, hands pressed to the dirt. The warmth she had felt earlier was now heat-rising fast. Raku pulled her up, dragging her toward a tall ridge. They climbed to the top, dust stinging their eyes. From there, they saw it far across. The desert-black towers began rising from the sandslow, massive, alive. Lena's mouth went dry. What did I wake up? She whispered. Raku didn't answer, but the fear in his eyes said enough. He had tried to stop her. He knew this place held secrets better left buried. But now the past had been disturbed, and something old had started moving again. They ran down the other side of the ridge, not stopping, not speaking. Lena looked back once. The towers were growing taller, and strange lights flashed around their bases. The signal she sent wasn't just a call for help, it was also a key, unlocking something ancient and dangerous. She felt a sharp pain in her stomach and stumbled. Raku caught her before she hit the ground. She placed a hand on her belly, confused. It wasn't hunger, it was something else, a soft flutter, like life. But there was no time to think. They had to move fast. The sky had changed, and now, so had everything else. The wind howled like a scream through the empty canyon. Lena pressed her hand over her belly as she ran, her breath short and fast. Her legs burned with every step, and dust stung her eyes. Behind her, towers of black metal reached high into the red sky. Pulsing with strange lights, she didn't know what they were, but she knew they were not meant to wake up. Beside her, Raku moved quickly, his tall form leaping over rocks and sliding down sandy slopes. He kept looking back, growling deep in his throat. The signal Lena had activated had not just called for help. It had opened something ancient, something powerful, and now it was hunting them. They ran for hours, the sky growing darker, the air colder. Finally, Raku stopped at a cliff wall. Flat and wide, he touched a hidden crack with his palm, and a narrow door slid open silently. Lena followed him inside without asking questions, her body too tired to speak. Inside, the air was cool and dry, the floor smooth and curved. It wasn't just a cavern, it was part of a structure, built long ago and forgotten. Faint lights flickered on the walls, showing drawings in glowing ink. Lena leaned against the wall and sank to the floor, her chest rising and falling quickly. I can't run anymore, she whispered. Raku crouched beside her, gently touching her shoulder. Then his hand moved to her stomach, and his eyes widened. Lena looked down, confused. There was a soft glow under her skin. Faint, but real. Her eyes filled with fear. "What's happening to me?" she asked. Raku didn't speak, but his expression softened. And he sat beside her. Together they listened to the low hum of the shelter walls. Time passed slowly, the world above them still shaking. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. Her thoughts were spinning about the baby, about Earth, about the towers rising above the ground. She stood up and walked deeper into the shelter. Raku followed her, silent and watchful. They entered a round chamber filled with old machines and more glowing symbols. In the center, a tall stone stood with handprints carved into it, too human-shaped, too alien-shaped. Lena placed her hand into one of the prints, and the stone lit up. A soft voice filled the room, calm, sad, and ancient. It spoke in English now, the words forming slowly. "This place was built by the Old Ones, a union of human and alien kind." Lena's eyes widened. It continued. "We shared peace, knowledge, and blood until fear tore us apart." Suddenly, images appeared on the walls, humans and aliens working together, raising children, building ships, then war, destruction, silence. The voice faded. Lena stepped back, shaken. Raku walked to her side, and for the first time, she understood. "You're not the first," she said slowly. "This has happened before." He nodded. Lena sat down, heart heavy. Her child was not a mistake. It was part of something much older, something that once brought two worlds together. But the towers above had not forgotten the war, and now they were awake. Raku activated a small console, and a map appeared. It showed the desert, the towers, and one final point of interest, far away. Deep in the mountains, a beacon station, hidden and still functional, if they reached it. Maybe they could send a clean signal to Earth, a real SOS, not one that would wake old machines, but it was far, across dangerous land. Lena looked down at her belly again. The glow was stronger now, soft and warm. "I'll do whatever it takes," she whispered, "for him." For us, Raku placed his clawed hand gently over hers. They stood together in the quiet chamber, two beings from different stars, but now bound by something more. Not war, not fear, life. The next day, they prepared to leave the shelter. Raku found a small energy core and placed it into Lena's survival suit, giving it power again. She packed the last of their food, and he crafted tools from broken metal and stone. Before leaving, Lena turned one last time toward the glowing wall. She touched it and whispered, "We won't repeat the past." Then they stepped back into the wild world. The sky above still red, the towers still pulsing, but far away. A single hope waited, a place where the signal might be pure, a place where life could begin again. The wind was cold now, sharper than before. The desert had changed. As if the land itself knew something was coming, Lena held her stomach gently as she walked beside Raku. Every few hours, she felt a soft flutter inside her, like small wings brushing against her skin from the inside. It was strange, beautiful, and terrifying at the same time. She didn't know what was growing inside her, but she knew it was alive. And it was hers. They walked through dry valleys and steep ridges. The sun above turned pale, and the sky began to turn gray. Storms circled in the distance, thick clouds spinning like they were alive. Raku walked ahead, checking the path, scanning the sky. He hadn't spoken a word, but Lena could feel the change in him. He was quieter now, more careful. Sometimes he would stop and place his hand on the ground, as if listening. Then he would keep moving without saying a word. Lena didn't ask questions anymore. She had learned to trust him. Her body was changing fast, too fast. Her belly grew rounder with each passing day, and the glow inside it became stronger. At night, when she lay down to rest, the glow lit up the inside of their small shelters. It was like carrying a tiny sun inside her. Sometimes she cried, not from pain, but from wonder. She wasn't supposed to survive this planet, but now she was carrying life on it. One morning, Raku stopped near the base of a tall cliff. He pointed to a narrow path leading upward, carved between sharp rocks. Lena looked up and frowned. "That's our way?" she asked, breathing heavily. He nodded slowly. At the top of the cliff, she could see the broken edge of a structure, maybe a watchtower or a communications outpost. It was their next hope, a place to boost their signal, maybe send a message to Earth that wouldn't wake the sleeping towers again. They started to climb, slow and careful. The rocks were sharp, the wind strong. Lena held her belly as she moved, taking each step with care. Raku stayed close, catching her when she slipped, guiding her with his strong hands. Halfway up, her foot missed a stone and she nearly fell, but Raku caught her with both arms. Pulling her to safety, he placed a hand on her stomach again, his face calm but focused. Lena saw something in his eye sphere. Not for himself, but for her and the child. They rested in a small gap in the cliffside. Lena leaned against the stone wall, heart pounding. Do you think the baby will be okay?" she asked. Raku didn't speak, but he reached into a pouch at his side and pulled out a small stone disc. He pressed it, and a soft image appeared, holographic light forming a picture. It showed a child, not fully human, not fully alien, but something between. The image showed the child laughing, running, happy. Lena's eyes filled with tears. "Is that what we're having?" she whispered. Raku nodded slowly. She smiled weakly. "He looks beautiful." The image faded, and they continued their climb. At the top of the cliff, they found what was left of the tower, metal twisted from time and wind, walls half broken. But the heart of the structure was still there, an old signal array, half buried under stone and vines. Lena moved to it quickly, opening a control panel. The power light blinked faintly. "I think I can make this work," she said, with hope in her voice. Raku kept watch as Lena connected the core from her suit into the array. It hummed softly, then lit up with blue lights. A screen flashed. "Transmit." She nodded. Yes. Her fingers hovered over the keys. She didn't know what to say. What words would reach Earth? What would explain her story? Then she typed, "Survivor." human, not alone. Need help. New life growing. Please respond. She pressed send. The tower blinked. The message shot into the sky in a beam of blue light. This time, it felt clean, controlled, not like the last signal. But just as hope filled her chest, the ground trembled. A deep growl echoed from the canyon. Below, Raku rushed to the edge. Eyes wide, black machines were rising again. Moving faster this time, they had found the signal and now they were coming. Lena turned to the tower. We need to go, now. But her legs felt weak. She fell to her knees, pain flashing across her body. The baby kicked hard, too hard. She gasped, gripping the stone floor. It's too soon, she whispered. Raku picked her up without a word. He held her close, his body shielding hers from the wind and dust. They ran from the tower into the narrow rock path again. Behind them, the machines roared, but ahead of them, Lena saw a light small and distant. But real hope? It wasn't over. Not yet. Not with life still growing inside her. The mountain winds screamed like voices of the dead. Lena's body shook in Raku's arms as he ran. Her face was pale. Her hands clenched tight around her belly. Each step he took sent a wave of pain through her body, but she didn't cry out anymore. She knew they had no time. The machines were rising, faster, louder, and something worse moved behind them, deep under the surface. Raku's feet crushed the rocky path as he carried her toward the last ridge. At the top, an old beacon tower stood, its frame broken, but the top still whole. That was their goal. If they reached it, maybe they could call for help once more. Maybe Earth would hear them before the machines reached them. Raku placed Lena gently on the ground behind a rock. Her breathing was shallow now. The glow from her belly had grown brighter, pulsing with soft light. She looked up at him, her voice a whisper. Climb. I can't. Raku turned and looked at the beacon. It was too high for her now. So he nodded once, then began to climb alone. His long fingers gripped the stone. His legs moved like wind. Lena watched, eyes full of fear and trust. As he reached the halfway point, the sky darkened, clouds swirled in wide circles, and lightning danced across the horizon below. Lena heard the metal roar of the machines closer now. She pushed herself to sit up. Leaning against the rock, her hand rested over her belly, the glow warming her palm. She whispered to the life inside her. Hold on, just a little longer. At the top of the tower, Raku reached a control unit buried under rust and vines. He pulled out the energy core Lena had saved and forced it into place. The machine sparked, hissed, then hummed to life. Blue lights lit the tower's edge, and a wide lens rotated toward the stars. Back below, Lena saw the beacon light form. It reached into the clouds along. Silent scream of light across the sky. She smiled, weakly. He did it, she whispered. But then she saw movement from the sands. The black machines rose tall. Many-legged with red lights in their cores. They didn't walk, they rolled, they slid, they hunted. Raku saw them too, but he didn't stop. He activated the transmission this time, not a wild signal, but a clear one. He typed the message using Earth symbols: human survivor, unknown pregnancy, danger active, immediate extraction required. The signal flashed green. Then sent. For one moment, all was silent. Then something massive moved beneath the desert floor. The earth cracked, and a large shape began to rise, part machine, part creature, with burning red eyes. It was not just one of them. It was their king, the ancient protector of this world, now awake. Lena looked up as the ground shook. Her hands shook too. Pain spreading through her chest and down her legs. She screamed as another contraction hit. It was happening now. There was no more time. Raku climbed down fast, landing beside her just as the machines reached the base of the hill. He picked her up again and ran toward a shallow cave nearby. They slid inside just as energy beams tore through the air above them. Inside, it was dark, quiet. Safe for just a moment, Raku lit a glowstone and placed it near her. Lena cried out again, gripping the ground. Tears streamed down her face. "I can't do this here," she said, shaking her head. Raku knelt beside her and took her hand. He placed it on his chest over his heartbeat. Then he placed his hand on her belly. His eyes glowed soft, not red, not yellow, but blue. A warm light covered the cave like a protective shell. Lena felt something calm pass through her, like the pain melted just enough to breathe. She looked into his eyes. "You're helping," she said. "You're connected to him?" Raku nodded once. He wasn't just the father, he was the bridge between her and the life inside. Together, they brought the child into the world. Hours passed like minutes. Outside, the machines searched and stormed, but none found the small cave. Inside, a soft cry broke the silence. Lena held the baby in her arms. Wrapped in fabric torn from her suit, he had small fingers, glowing eyes like his father, and warm human skin like his mother. She laughed and cried at the same time. "You're real," she whispered. "You made it." Raku sat beside her, eyes full of something close to love. He touched the child's cheek and smiled. Then, from above, a loud sound echoed like thunder. But deeper, they stepped out of the cave slowly. A bright light broke through the clouds. A ship, human, Earth-built, coming down fast. The beacon had worked. Help was here. The machines turned toward the sky, confused, then silent, and for the first time, the desert knew peace. The sky split open with the sound of thunder. A human rescue ship descended through thick clouds, its white lights cutting through the dark sky. Lena held her newborn close to her chest, his small body warm, his soft breath steady. Raku stood beside her, his eyes focused on the ship, but his face unreadable. Dust blew across the desert floor as the ship touched down, sending waves of sand in every direction. The machines that had chased them were gone, silent once more, as if the presence of the human ship had frozen them in time. The beacon's light slowly faded behind them. Its purpose now complete, the ship's door opened with a sharp hiss, and a team of humans in white suits ran out. Weapons raised at first, then they stopped. Their eyes wide with shock, they saw Lena dirty, tired, glowing with life, holding something in her arms that they had never seen before. One of the team members, a woman with a calm voice, stepped forward. "Lena Carter." Lena nodded weakly. "I'm Captain Riley from Earth's Deep Response Division." The woman said, "We received your signal." Lena tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Raku caught her gently and helped her stay on her feet. The soldiers looked at him, confused, cautious, ready to fire. But when they saw how he held Lena, and how gently he looked at the child, they lowered their weapons. "He saved me," Lena said, her voice soft but firm. "He saved both of us." The captain gave a slow nod. "Then he comes with us." Inside the ship, the air was clean and cool. Doctors rushed to Lena's side, scanning her, checking her vitals. They looked at the baby in awe, whispering words like hybrid, first contact, and miracle. But Lena didn't care about their science talk. All she cared about was that her child was safe. She named him Orin. It meant light in the dark, a name from her mother's stories. Raku stayed close, never leaving her side. He was quiet, always watching, as if unsure how long this peace would last. The humans aboard the ship studied him too, with scanners and questions, but he answered none. He didn't need to. His actions had already spoken louder than any words as the ship flew across space. Heading back toward Earth, Lena stared out the window. The planet they had left behind grew smaller and smaller, until it was just a dot, a world of pain, danger, and death, yes, but also the world where Orin was born. The world where love had taken root between two completely different beings. Back on Earth, news spread fast. Everyone wanted to see the alien baby, the warrior mother and the silent protector. But Lena refused the attention. She stayed in a small base near the edge of the Pacific quiet. Safe and far from cameras. Raku was given his own quarters, but he chose to sleep outside Lena's room every morning. He held Orin in his arms as the child looked up at him with glowing blue eyes. The baby smiled more when Raku was near. As if he could feel a connection even without words, scientists wanted to test the baby, take samples, run scans, ask endless questions. Lena said no. Orin was not a project, not an experiment. He was her son. And Raku's, one day, as the sun set behind the ocean. Lena stood on the beach with Orin in her arms. Raku stood beside her, looking out at the waves. "This world is different," she said quietly. "Not like your home." Raku turned to her, his eyes soft. Then he looked at the sky and pointed to a star. It blinked slowly, one Lena had never seen before. She understood. "That's where you came from." He nodded once. She smiled. "And now you're here." Orin reached out with his tiny hand and touched Raku's face. For a moment, everything was quiet. The wind, the waves, even the air. It was like the universe had paused to watch something special. A new beginning, a new kind of family. A union not of war or fear, but of love. Later, Earth's leaders held meetings, trying to decide what to do with Raku. Was he a guest? A hero? A threat? Lena made it clear. "He stays," she said, "or I leave." The world listened, because it had to, because Lena was no longer just a survivor. She was something greater now, a symbol of what humanity could become. Raku stayed. And little by little, people stopped fearing him. They saw the way he held Orin, the way he protected Lena. They began to understand. Not everything alien had to be a threat. Some things, some beings were sent not to destroy, but to heal. And so, on the quiet coast of a blue world, far from the stars that tore them apart, woman, an alien, and their child began a new chapter. One step, one breath, one heartbeat at a time. Together, they had survived, and now, together, they would live.